Hey, let's do it for the content. Mega Ran. Let's go. Let's get it. Dick Kick City. It gets gritty when Mega Ran come through. The kid gets busy. Work yourself into a shoot, but you know it's legit. Like what you like, just don't be a dick. Hey, wrestling with regret. Let's get it. Yeah. What's that set? Maybe you should bottle it. Drink it and spray it on. Get Claude to model it. 8 years in, can't look back. Who else can make the little sweatsuits look whack? Wrestling with regret. Let's get it. Yeah.
There's this narrative that wrestling fans didn't begin to embrace bad guys as being cool until the late 1990s, but that sounds kind of like bullshit, doesn't it? There's always been some contingent of fans over the years who thought it was more fun to cheer for the bad guys over the good guys. My dad would tell me stories about him going to shows and doing that very thing back in the 70s. There are tons of examples in which the bad guys have more interesting characters or gimmicks than the good guys. How many times have wrestling heels been practically forced to turn face due to fans demanding it? Deep down, fans have always rooted for the bad guy, no matter what time period. Which I guess was the basis for the 1986 film Bad Guys. At least I think it was. When people talk about their favorite wrestling movies, often found on the fringes of conversation is this, a movie directed by Joel Silberg, who was just 2 years removed from directing Breakin', the movie best known for having a sequel with the phrase Electric Boogaloo in it. Bad Guys is a story of 2 police officers who get suspended for busting one too many heads and discover that there's money to be made in the wrestling business. By the way, I promise not to make any commentary about law enforcement as it pertains to the present day if you all promise to keep it chill in the comments section, okay? For me, please, one look at this VHS cover and you can just tell, actually you probably can't tell what the hell this movie's gonna be about if you don't have the context. God, this thing looks like it belonged behind the curtain room at the old rental stores. You know what I'm talking about. My review of this movie is a long time coming. I mean a very long time. When I pulled up the copy I had on my computer and looked at the date that it was added to my hard drive, it said March of 2013. More than 9 years ago, still a few months away from the first episode of Wregret I ever published, I grabbed that movie as a potential topic for review. It's one of the oldest files I have on this drive. This son of a bitch has been in my ideas spreadsheet for longer than my channel has actually been active. So, as the old saying goes, better late than never, let's look at Bad Guys. The film opens up with a high-speed chase between a guy in a truck and a police officer on his motorcycle. It looks as if the chaser has pinned down the chasee. However...
But we're late! We are? Let's go!
Meet officers Dave Atkins and Skip Jackson, played by Mike Jolly and Adam Baldwin respectively. I haven't seen any of Jolly's other work, but for his sake, I hope he got better.
Me overreact? My fault? The Kremlin Crushers? Why?
Bad Guys was one of Baldwin's earliest roles. Baldwin, who by the way isn't a real Baldwin, has gone on to have a lengthy career with many roles, but he'll always be Jane to me. By the way, with hair like that, yeah, Skip checks out for his name. They get to the arena where Dave is just in time for his side hustle, moonlighting as a pro wrestler. Skip accompanies him to ringside, which means that at least one of them is doing all this while still on duty. Dave's fighting 2 big dudes all by his lonesome for some reason. Holy crap, the kid's doing the hangman spot? That's a big step up from the last match where the finish saw one guy have a hard time with a body slam. Anyway, the referee gets royally shit-canned, and when things begin to look bleak, Skip takes it upon himself to enter the match and help seal a victory for his buddy. These shenanigans are all observed with awe by Janice Edwards, by far the nicest dressed individual in the entire building. She's a local reporter on the wrestling beat, but apparently also wants to be their manager? Bit of a conflict of interest, is that not?
We're cops, okay? We like being cops, okay? I wrestle to stay in shape.
Well, before MMA gyms were a thing, where else were you gonna do cardio? Before we get to learn anything about our 2 main characters, Skip and Dave are off to respond to a call at a nearby bar, which turns out to be a loud brawl involving a dozen guys. Yep, these 2 should have it in the bag. Oh shit, you know things are about to get real when somebody hits them with that echo spit. Sure enough, the cops throw hands and destroy everyone in the bar, while the tap breaks and is spewing beer all over the... can't you just get a 3rd cup, dude? Skip and Dave get in trouble with their captain, who, as all good movie police captains do, reads them the riot act.
Brutal cops beat up local bike club. Brutal cops maim Murphy Green and terrorize bike club.
Whoa, so you're just gonna skip over the one that said those 2 maimed a group of high school students, which seemed to happen within a close enough time period that all these different newspapers would be on his desk at the same time?
Who's Murphy Green?
What difference does it make?
A lot. Actually, since you went ahead and named him, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Our heroes are suspended without pay for the incidents, which is probably the biggest piece of Hollywood fiction you'll see all movie. They hop around from job to job in a series of mid-90s era WCW gimmicks, beginning with construction, where Skip can't resist the urge to shtup his boss's lady when she pulls her tits out in the job site.
It sounds just like a power drive.
Their next attempt at paying the bills comes in the form of stripping.
Hey, what are you waiting for? Get out there!
Feel like a sissy!
Dude, you're in pro wrestling. The similarities between that and stripping are so plentiful, they're practically the same thing. What are you worried about? This gaggle of ladies seems to find their form of dancing, which includes jumping jacks, can-cans, and play wrestling holds, totally irresistible.
Come on, let's hear it for the Bull Brothers!
Wait, what did he call them?
Let's hear it for the Bull Brothers!
Okay, he either said bull or ball, and for the purpose of this review, I'm just gonna go with the latter and declare that to be canon. Things go from bad to worse for our boys when Dave's truck is repossessed. Dang, a few years too early for a Repo Man cameo. They get picked up by a few of the G-string Marys in the crowd, but are kicked to the curb when they reject their advances.
Never knew dancing could be so hazardous.
Down their luck with no other place to turn, the Ball brothers decide to do the thing they got in trouble for in the first place: beat people up. They call reporter/manager Janice for work, but couldn't they have just called the promoter Dave was already working for? She sets them up with their first match as a tag team, but at the same time also says she's bringing in another manager to take a look at them.
And if he takes you on, you'll be making a couple of $100,000 in no time.
So wait, you're gonna have another manager come along to potentially take your talent away from you? Or at least you have to share with him? Like, how does this benefit you in any way? We go to the match where our boys take on the Kremlin Crushers, played by Alexei Smirnov and Jay York. As the fighting cops show up to the ring in what I guess you could call their young lion attire, we get our first look at Lord Percy Babington, played by James Booth.
I'm so glad you could come, Lord Percy.
You know, I'd circumnavigate the globe to see you, my cousin.
And take a look at who the referee here is in this scene. Though at this point, should I even be surprised that Jesse Hernandez was part of this? I believe that brings the total to like 6 or 7 things I've reviewed with him in it. Like I've always said, you can't escape this man. Either this match has tornado rules, or Choo Choo Cardona has lost control from the word go. Our boys get their asses kicked by the Russians, though a little too much as the larger opponents get disqualified. But the brutal Bolsheviks and their cheating ways make Percy's monocle pop off with delight.
Those Russians are the most disgusting thing I've seen for years. Such beasts. I love them. I want bad guys.
So to get back at Percy for not rating her talent, I think, she vows to turn Dave and Skip into a pair of bad guys themselves. Well, hey, that's the name of the movie. In order to beat the Russians for real next time, our boys need training, which they get from Terrible Turk McGurk, played by Judo Gene LaBelle. The list of Gene's acting and stunt credits over the decades is about a mile long, including 3 Elvis movies in the 1960s and the 1978 Henry Winkler film The One and Only. Turk works alongside...
And I'm Petal McGurk, his lady wife.
Son of Gurk does the traditional rookie stretching session, and even the glorified version of Gladys Ormsby gets in on the action.
See this championship belt? I won that in Madison Square Garden.
It's real nice.
Well, hang on. Turk incorporates props into his Welcome to the Business beatdown? I gotta respect this guy's style. Through the power of montage, the boys train and train and train. Petal bangs a gong. They wrestle a bear? They are ready. Janice renames the duo the Boston Bad Guys, which you can totally see reflected in their barbarian gimmicks. Also, talk about this film trope that's aged like milk.
Oh, I find them gorgeous. Oh, my. I just wish I could push these guys around the way she does.
Oh, yes, she's such a... Shut up!
Nothing got people in the 80s laughing quite like a couple of homosexuals having a tiff. Am I right, folks?
In this business, when you pick an image, you stick with it.
Tell that to these guys. We jump to the next show where we see Lord Percy chatting it up with another promoter type character named Louis Constantine, or Luigi as he's called in the beginning of the movie. Close enough. Percy is angling for a cushy deal.
What are you looking for?
Exclusive contract? No other bad guys on your books, eh?
Wow, a show with only one heel act on the entire card? That sounds interesting. I'd love to see that play out in real life. I'm sure that would never ever get boring. We also learned that Murphy Green is the name of the main goon from the bar fight earlier, and that they were only causing trouble there to convince the owners to sell the property to Lord Percy? If there's anything a snooty rich manager wants, it's a seedy dive bar. Oh man, we're starting to experience plot overload. I'm not sure how many more loose threads this movie can take. It's time for the BBGs to battle the Evergreen Padres, who are receiving an award from the American Wrestling Association for some reason. Don't worry folks, no rapping Vern Gagne here. True to wrestling form, Skip embraces his inner bad guy and breaks the plaque over the guy's damn head, leading Percy and Turk to argue over the ownership of basic heel tactics.
Wait a minute! They're my dirty tricks you're stealing! Those are the same tricks you stole from me 20 years ago!
The cheap shot on the man of the cloth causes a riot to break out, and our ragtag team must flee. What? I love this movie. They make it to the back, and despite the fact that their actions cause the match to not happen and therefore cause them to not get paid, it's thumbs up all around. Percy orders Murphy to sue the cops and the police department into oblivion because why settle things in the ring, I guess? The boys are almost scared to the point of quitting the business, but luckily Janice is very sympathetic to their predicament.
Well, not to mention the fact that the promoters will probably sue your asses off. And so will I.
We see his lordship and the Crushers enjoying some evil R&R when their TV happens to show an elaborate music video for the bad guys. So I guess Memphis had a hand in this movie too?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Boston Bad Guys. You can see them wrestling the Texas Rangers next week at the good old Templar Auditorium. Close to $1.
My dear, what's this I hear about those absolutely bloody awful bad guys wrestling the Texas Rangers on my pit?
Whoa, wait a minute. Isn't Constantine the promoter of this fight? Are you a manager or a matchmaker? This shouldn't be that confusing. Skip and Dave visit the eternally disgruntled captain just to remind everyone about that part of the story, and suddenly, almost out of nowhere, Dave has a change of heart and decides he doesn't want to be a bad guy anymore.
You'll never be bad if you go soft.
I don't want to be bad. I don't want any more of this. I'm sick of it.
Oh no, not another plot point. Oh man, if any fundraisers or orphans come up in this movie, we're fucked. The boys are kicked off the show as a favor to Percy, so they respond by jumping the Kremlin Crushers mid-match, which earns them the adoration of the crowd, making them the good guys, I guess. As that happens, Janice convinces Constantine to put her guys back on his card for a future match, and the next main event is announced. What's better than a training montage? How about dueling training montages? Dig those giant bottles of vodka. I guess this is what that blurb on the front cover must have meant when it said, "There hasn't been a moment like it since Rocky IV." This was the specific moment that the New York Times was referring to there. Dave gets his repoed truck back and things seem to be looking up. Both guys ask Janice out on a date, which leads to an awkward situation at the restaurant before she plays peacemaker and gets their heads back in the game for the big bout. It's the day of the big show. Skip and Dave leave the house in full Team America gear, those bad guys, but get chased down by Murphy Green and his biker gang. Call me crazy, but I don't think that's the best strategy when you're already trying to sue them. You odd over a box full of insulation by the looks of it? Our boys are trapped and hung upside down in a warehouse on the docks, where Green reveals the whole plan and is immediately caught like an idiot.
Because you stuck your nose in his business when we was trying to buy the pit bull, okay?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Freeze! Drop the gun, Murphy!
Back at the arena, tension builds as Skip and Dave aren't there for the match yet. But look everyone, Sergeant Slaughter's the big guest of honor at this show. Constantine, wearing his finest enoki scarf for the occasion, declares the Russians will win by forfeit if their opponents don't come to the ring by the count of 30. Luckily, the police captain's turned babyface and helps his guys get to the show on time thanks to a motorcade. Pretty much the only part of the movie that justifies our heroes being cops in the first place, because it sure doesn't seem to matter anywhere else. The fans go gaga for these guys, even though they've never seen these two in that gimmick before. But hey, it was the 80s, what are you gonna do? It's announced the winner of this match will go on to challenge for the World Tag titles at Madison Square Garden later in the year. Nothing more exciting for a film's climactic battle than to learn it's a semi-final. It's pretty standard fare for a cinematic wrestling match. At first the Russians are out bad guying the bad guys, who are complaining about those tactics when I thought that was the whole gist of their story arc. By which I mean the bad guys. Not the bad guys. Oh god, this is so confusing. We're meant to be cheering for the bad guys here, not the bad guys! Skip and Dave fight back just in time for Lord Percy to sick his bodyguard, played by Professor Toro Tanaka, on them.
Break this up, Professor!
The professor gets his hands on the heroes, which causes Slaughter to protest.
The guy doesn't belong in here!
Whose voice was that?
Hold this!
Slaughter steals the spotlight just like he stole all that valor and fights off the bodyguard. Things get so chaotic that the Ruskies grab Old Glory and beat everyone up with it. Feels like a missed opportunity for Red Bastien to do the best ever referee bump. But Terrible Turk comes in to save the flag from further desecration, allowing our heroes to recover and make their comeback, complete with a dive straight out of Japan. Double pin and the win. America wins! The bad guys win! Oh my god, are we the bad guys? Lord Percy is arrested for his association with Murphy Green as our heroes celebrate and are faced with a choice. Do they want to be cops? Do they want to be wrestlers? Do they want to wrestle in a handicap match with Janice after the show? The answer is yes. Freeze frame! And that was the perplexingly titled Bad Guys. I feel like a great weight has finally been lifted. I don't consider the movie to be bad, a little outdated, sure, but what buddy comedy around this time isn't? I walked away from the film kind of confused as to just what made our heroes bad guys in the end. They broke an award over a guy's head once, but then the rest of the movie they feuded with Russians during the height of the Cold War and were wearing gear emblazoned with stars and stripes, and they still wrestled like babyfaces. I'm glad they at least kept their wrestling universe fairly consistent in presenting it as a shoot competition instead of a performance, though there were enough subtle nods to the psychology of presentation that I could appreciate. Mike Jolly's not the best actor, but the rest of the seasoned cast around him certainly pulls their weight, especially Adam Baldwin, Ruth Buzzy, and Gene LaBelle. It's a pretty fun comedy that explores the cheesier side of wrestling without making it look too silly or too serious. If you haven't seen the movie, it's all up on YouTube if you want to find it. I mean, if they changed one or two things here or there, this had the potential to be a great 1980s flick. I wonder what it was going up against at the time. Oh, well, nothing was gonna beat Gung Ho.